Now I can hear you. Hi.
Hi, that's just weird, man. I have no idea. I could see that the purple lines were going up and down, so I know my audio was working. Now there was a problem initially with the audio, but I fixed all that, and then I still couldn't hear you because Twitter Space is incompatible between different platforms. I guess I have no idea, but it's weird. But anyways, how you been, man?
Let's just blame a certain, American billionaire who recently bought the platform, and since then everything's kind of been going downhill.
You know what's funny? You mentioned that, but wasn't somebody saying that there was some code that was embedded in Twitter's hardware that the people that were all being fired knew about, but nobody else did, and that it was supposed to like degrade over time or something like that? It was supposed to be all these things were supposed to happen to Twitter, and it seems to be the case because they have nobody that knows the code any longer because Elon fired all of them.
Yeah, well, basically, Musk fired the people based on how many lines of code they would produce on average, right? Which is a terrible metric when it comes to, rating specialists.
Right, right. I
Because
mean,
they just, there's scenarios where they just sit in front of the computer all day staring at 10 lines of code, and then they put out one, but, that's the important one.
yeah,
So
it's a
it's just another,
mismanaged system.
symptom of his stupidity of not understanding how anything works. But that's beside the point today, I guess.
Yeah, because it's based upon productivity. What he thinks is productivity, which is not. When you're a code writer, and I used to write code years ago. You've written some code. You want your code to be bug free. You want it to be as well back in our day. You wanted to have as much minimal memory usage as possible and minimal memory leaks. So you wanted to have it as compactified as possible and use brevity and things of that nature. But with him, it's just, oh, well, just produce a bunch of lines of code. Doesn't matter if it's, has bugs in it or not. It's all based upon that rather than is just good, solid, compactified code. And that's not of his interest. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that he made a horrible mistake by making that the primary motive of the people working for him. Yes. But anyways, that wasn't going to be the topic tonight.
No, it
Topic,
wasn't.
no, topic was going to be the wonderful debate that we watched.
Oh my god. So I couldn't watch the entire thing. Right after 1 hour, I just stopped. I just I couldn't torture myself with seeing that because obviously Trump did his typical liathon, which was expected, right?
Yeah, yeah. Nobody
Yeah,
nobody thought that he wasn't going to lie. That's
yeah.
when people are like, "Oh, Trump's lying." It's like, yeah, and the sky's blue.
But Biden, man, that was painful.
Well, and here's the thing, though. Biden, like the next day, today or yesterday, I guess had it been this morning, he actually seemed a lot more aware of his surroundings, a lot more cognizant than he was before. And I do think that's a sign of dementia. I think that during the debate, it was late. He wasn't all there. You can tell by his effect that he wasn't all quite there. And so I think that he's going through stages of dementia, and the debate was just not a good night for that.
Yeah, but even assuming that he had the worst night ever, right? That doesn't mean that this won't happen again in the future. In my opinion, that might already be enough to disqualify him for running.
Well, okay, but here's the thing, and I don't know if this is true. One second, but I've seen on the Twitter spheres that that might be too late to replace him on 4 of the state ballots. That he might be locked in, and
Oh,
that they
really?
couldn't replace. Yeah, I at least
Jesus
on 4
Christ.
states, and they're battleground states, from what I understand. So if that's true, I have not vetted that information, but if that is true, that 4 battleground states all have him locked in, and they can't just replace him, then the Democratic Party is absolutely screwed unless he willfully steps down and let Kamala Harris or somebody else takes the spot. But if he does not want to step down, they can't force him because of that. That's my understanding. Anybody who listens to this later on, because I do want this copy of the recording to put on my YouTube channel, they can let me know. But that was my understanding from what I've seen on Twitter that people were saying and talking about. So
There's one additional option, which is him running but announcing beforehand that once he's inaugurated, he'll step down to make space for Harris.
that might be true, but he has to win to do that. And the
That's
problem
true.
is that okay. So again, politics is nothing that I really get into too much. However, I have done some shows like Over and Under with Chris Atley from we did a show called Over and Under, And so it's not one of my things that I talk about a lot. So don't take anything I say about politics to be somebody who's informed. I don't think that I really am exceptionally informed. I watch it like anybody else. But as a person who just on the sideline watches these things, I think that that's my position to say, okay, as the average watcher, what did I just view? What am I looking at here? And I think that right now the polls are saying that Biden was up about +7, +8. He's now down -2 to -7. Trump is up +2, +7.
Oh God.
That's a
Well,
big swift
yeah,
change.
that's a very
change,
big change
swing.
within 1 day or 2 days, right?
Huge. I don't
And
think anybody's ever seen
the
like
same
that.
the same thing happened or the same result you can see when it comes to polls about how the debate actually was done by itself, where about 70% of people said that Trump won it, and only 30% said that Biden would. So
Yeah, yeah.
and the calls for his resignation, well, not resignation, but not running again, are now increasing. So honestly, I have no idea how this is gonna end. I mean, you look at a scenario where in November you have to choose between either a guy who is, not mentally fit anymore, and the guy who, already, has been sentenced to potential jail time. What the
yeah. And
fuck is going on?
okay. So this is my personal view. Um, there's still only one choice, and that's Biden. And it sucks to say that,
I
but
agree. I agree.
but
That was
we
my
have to be
analysis as well.
yeah, we have to be pragmatic here. As you said, Trump is he's the worst of the two evils, because I look at it this way, and tell me if you agree. That if Biden is elected or reelected, even if he is incompetent, somebody's going to step in and do the job for him. With Trump, he's a dictator. He's an authoritarian. Although people were doing things for him because he was incompetent, he didn't know this in the background. I think he's aware of it now.
Yes,
And
yeah, he is. I mean, you remember
he'll
when
take
people
over.
just kept on being fired by him, or just voluntarily resigning
Right.
during his first term, because even they noticed that this couldn't continue. Now he's surrounded himself by all of these yes men that will just do whatever he's saying. So
Exactly right. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
they
he
even brought
already
that up
announced that he wanted to be dictator, right? He said that multiple times.
Yeah, yeah. And
He
here's the
quote
thing.
unquote joked that he would want to run for a third term if that was possible. And then whenever he was asked about this, he said, "Oh, it's just sarcasm." Yeah, bullshit. No, you're fucking
That's not
serious.
sarcasm. No, he would stay in office if he could. If there wasn't an amendment, what is it? The 25th Amendment, I think it is.
26, I think, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's
Whatever.
one of the other.
It's one of the
Again,
very recent ones, right? It was after FDR.
yeah, but it basically it states that a president can only run have 8 terms consecutively or 10 years if they're not consecutively. And so
I think there's also the option that if you have been vice president before for less than half of a term, and the president dies, then you can run twice afterwards.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there's some provisions for a president to be president for more than 8 years, but it wouldn't be applicable to Trump. If he ran for 4 years, he would be out of office after that. There's nothing that can make him stay except for maybe a wartime situation.
Not even that, as far as I'm aware.
I don't know if there's okay. So
no, I mean, remember that FDR died in, what was it, February 45 or something? That was just a few weeks after he was inaugurated, right? So even in late 44, the election was still running, even though World War II was this final time, this is highest point. So no, I don't think there's an option for an election to be pushed away, at least in the US.
Geo, it's the 22nd Amendment. Okay, just so
whatever.
We know.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was the 25th, 26th, or 27th. I knew it was in the 20s. So 22nd Amendment. I wanted to make sure I get it right. That a president can't serve more than 2 elected terms, but they can serve more than 8 years. But I thought 10 years was most. I don't know how that's changed if there's an active war going on at the time.
I don't think it changes.
I don't think it does either. But there was a movie like Wag the Dog or something like that where they had that premise where, they had that premise where if they were in the middle of the war, then they wouldn't replace the president. But hopefully we won't have to ever test that, because again, I think the founding fathers had no clue they would get something like Trump, and that they did not plan ahead for somebody like Trump.
You see, the thing is that your constitution seems to assume that every politician is an honest person, which is mistake number 1.
Well, that at least has some form of wanting to help America, right? I mean, but they should realize that they came from a British monarchy. They came from an authoritarian regime. They should have had provisions to prevent things like that, which they knew would happen. They did put provisions in there.
I mean, they do have them, right? But they're not strong enough. The fact that
they're not strong enough, right?
I mean, the fact that Trump could run his entire term, even though he was impeached twice, that was already bad enough. I
Yeah,
don't
well,
understand. Like, remember the time when this phone call leaked between him and Raffensperger?
yeah, of
I
course.
don't
About the
understand
missiles,
how he wasn't arrested that fucking day. He should have
the
been arrested
javelin,
that day.
yeah, the javelin missiles, right?
Javelin missiles? What? No,
When
I'm
he was
talking about
talking.
the find me 12,000 votes. That thing.
Oh, that one. Oh, I thought you about the one he was talking. He wanted to exchange something for 5,000, something like javelin missiles.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this one. No, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
election interference
No,
thing.
you're
What was it,
about finding the
Georgia?
votes.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was
quote
Georgia's.
unquote finding the votes.
He was asking the person who certified the vote in Georgia to find those votes, and it was very clear his meaning.
Yeah. No, he should have been arrested that day, or at latest the day after after Biden was inaugurated.
Yeah, I don't
It's
know if he
very
would have
clear
been
what he
found
was
guilty
planning.
on that. I think so too, but you would have to make a holistic case for that. That would be more than that one instance. But when you have things like January 6th, and you have things of him saying that he would basically stay in office as long as he could, um, and I do think he wants the office more than ever, because if he doesn't become president, I do think he's going to get arrested
I mean, he already was arrested, right? The question is just whether
again.
he's
Yeah, true. Okay,
imprisoned or
yeah,
not.
yeah. I think that he'll get arrested for an incarcerated period of time based upon either the 34 felony counts that he was found convicted of, or on some other things, because he still has two other pending lawsuits.
As far as I'm aware, the Georgia thing is still going on, isn't it? It was just
Yeah,
pushed
that's
back.
pending. Yeah, but who?
I don't even think he can pardon himself for that one, right? Because it's a state crime.
No, he can't. Yeah, he can't pardon himself. But again, the founding fathers did not suspect that a person who was a felon was going to be possibly the president. It was funny because you can't vote in America if you're a convicted felon, but you can be voted for, and the president. I mean, it just blows my mind.
Yeah. You want to know what I think is the second biggest mistake in the U.S. Constitution? It's the fact that the basic rights are not immutable. So
Yeah,
in the German Constitution, right, it starts the first 20 or so articles are all about the basic rights. Like, yes, you have the right to assembly and yada yada, freedom of religion, so on and so forth. Basically the same ones that you get, right? Just a bit extended. But there's an article in there that says those 20 articles, their content can never really be changed. Even if we get a new constitution, if the principles of those articles are not included, then that new constitution wouldn't be valid, right? It's immutable.
yeah,
It's not
it's
changeable.
mutable. Right,
Yeah,
right.
and in the US, all of your basic rights are in the amendments, and those have been overturned before, right? Just the one on, what was it, prohibition, for example? That was gotten rid of by just adding another amendment saying that the previous one was not valid anymore. So there's
Yeah, well,
a serious issue in there that somebody might try to come along and take those things
he
away.
would. He would. If he could change the fundamentals of the Constitution, I absolutely believe Trump would do so. I mean, he thinks he's been anointed. I don't think he actually believes he's anointed from God. Some of his constituents
No,
do,
I
but
don't.
I mean,
I don't think the guy believes in anything
I
apart
agree.
from himself.
I agree. I don't think he has any belief in God whatsoever. I think he thinks he's the be all end all superior person on the planet. I mean, the man is a complete narcissist.
Oh, that's an insult to narcissists. Pretty sure that most of them don't want to be connected with Trump at all.
Oh, I just had something nice on Facebook. It's weird. I put something on Facebook about breaking down and having an energy drinks that I haven't had in quite some time. Because my roommate gets after me on it. She says I shouldn't be having energy drinks, but it's the only thing that keeps me going is caffeine. So I drink coffee. But I broke down and got Monsters 3 for $5, and I put that on my Facebook. And somebody wrote, "You're the only person I found on the internet that is capable of intelligent conversation. While I'm humbled by your intellect, I also seek it out as a sounding board for my thoughts." And I know that's sweet. That's nice. That makes me feel good, because I usually don't know what the hell I'm saying half the time, especially on topics like politics. I just kind of like do my own thing. But here's the thing, Jill. This is what's great about us. You're from another country. I'm not a political person, and yet we are just average people talking about politics. And I think that's what the American people do themselves, because very few people are, involved directly on these things, but they're just on the outskirts looking in going, what the fuck has happened to America? What the hell is going on, where the best two political candidates we have is a person who's clearly suffering from dementia, and the other person who's a pathological liar and that is an authoritarian narcissist. This is the best we got for America. Explain this to me, how the dumbing down of America has been such that these are the best two we got. But by the way, makes us, believe it or not, we're part of the smarter people from the average. If the average intelligence of the United States has gone down, and you've got a PhD in chemistry, and I'm not a complete idiot, we're smarter than we were just effectively speaking a decade ago in comparison to other Americans. Okay, because America has been dumbed down completely.
It's only supposed to get worse, right? I recently read a study that said that as the CO2 content in the atmosphere increases, human cognitive ability actually goes down. They tested this to make sure that there's controlled environments for like official exams. Like if the air is very stale and full of CO2, people actually perform worse. And it turns out that we're currently at 425 or so ppm of CO2 in our atmosphere. When we reach 700 ppm, which might happen during our lifetimes, well, during my lifetime at least, human cognitive ability goes down by about 15%, which means that here in Europe, we're all going to turn into Americans.
Oh, well,
The
save the
American,
rainforest then.
wait,
Save
wait,
the
wait, yeah,
rainforest.
wait. The Americans are all going to turn into Floridians.
Ooh,
And
that's a
oh
meme.
yeah, and very thankfully, Florida will be underwater.
Yeah, well, that's about what's gonna happen the next 100 years. Real quick, a friend of mine, John, is listening, but it doesn't. I can't see him listening. Do you see him listening?
I have no idea how the software works. Hang on.
Axel 84. I don't see anybody listening, but
No, neither do I. By the way, if I cough a lot, I'm still recovering from a cold, so that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't. I only see the two of us.
That's weird. I hope you feel better.
Thank you. I already missed the conference because of this shit.
Man, I'm telling you, I don't like feeling bad, and it gets worse when you get older. You feel like.
Yeah, thanks. I just turned 30, and all of a sudden my back hurts.
Oh yeah, well, you've got a long ways to go, man. You're just on the beginning part of the downhill. Give it another decade or two.
Yeah, fucking entropy, man. That said, I've been much more active recently since I bought a new electric bike. That actually gets me along quite well.
Where? Okay, so why isn't he? Why can't I see him? Because he says he sees Geostreber.
Okay, well, I can't see him either. Hang on.
He can't see you.
Well, listeners, it just says Steve McRae. That's it.
That's all I see too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Twitter Spaces are just weird, man.
This entire software is broken. Always has been. And you can't even screen share. You can't even show pictures and stuff.
That's weird. You can't screen share. I think that's something they definitely need to implement. But here's the thing: why does it work on other people? Like I see people doing Twitter Spaces all the time, and a couple hundred people will listen.
I mean,
when I try to do it, I'll get like 10, but then 3 of them or 4 of them will have connection issues.
I mean, it could be that it's because I'm using the desktop, right? Apparently, maybe if you're using the Android or the iOS app, it works better. I don't know.
Well, I would imagine if you use the app, it probably does work better, but I don't use the app on my PC. Maybe I'll switch to it and try that.
Well, I'm not going to switch. I already hate my smartphone enough. I'm not going to make it worse.
Yeah, I hear you. He says Gio is host, and I can see both of you, and I show as listener. Rejoin. So neither one of us can see you, John, which is weird. I'm not even joking. He's listening, and yet neither one of us can see him listening. That's odd. So I told him to leave and rejoin.
Yeah, well, strange. You don't have a Discord channel anymore, do you?
Yeah, I got 2 Discords.
You do? Oh, then why don't we do it over there?
Because it's easier for people to join on Twitter if they want to, and I like having open discussions. Twitter, Discord, they have to go, log in, and people on Twitter Spaces generally see people on Twitter Space, and they just kind of jump in, and that way I get more of a landscape of views.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That said, I'm also not a fan of Discord anymore. They have some serious privacy issues.
Yeah, well, they've always had issues.
Yeah. My long-term plan, that I'm currently transitioning over to using or running everything on Linux.
Well, Linux is a far better operating system by far.
Yes, but along with that comes the option to also use some different services. So instead of Discord, I'm currently trying to use Matrix. If you know what that is.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it's like Discord. The difference is that you can host your own servers, right? It's not running on some cloud instance. It's running on your own hardware.
It's running on your local drive?
Yeah, you can if you want to, right? You can use online or use other people's services. That includes where the account information is saved.
I like that better because it's direct. It's peer-to-peer.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that's usually better.
Yeah,
he said he just rejoined, and I still can't see him.
Neither can I.
This is weird. I mean, I don't know, John.
I said it when I started this stream. I said it that everybody can join and listen. So I don't think I need to do anything.
No, it shows no listeners.
Is it because
Maybe,
I'm not a Twitter Pro user?
no, has no relevancy to that. Anybody can do spaces. Maybe I think John just needs to like close out his Windows, close out his app, and then try to relog on Twitter.
Maybe I don't know. I have no
Because
idea.
that's what I did. I rebooted, and so I just relogged on everything. And that, but if he's having problems, I wonder if anybody else is. Not that it matters. It's 3:45 in the
Yeah.
morning. I just like I said, I just wanted to
Oh
to
yeah,
vent a
right. It's
little bit about
super in
the
the early for you, super early in the morning for you, isn't it?
yeah. But I just wanted to vent on this particular thing, and you were asking me, and I was like, "Can you give me?" I asked you for a rain check, and I was like, "Oh shit, it's an hour and a half later. Maybe you're still up." Because I really did
Well,
want to have this discussion.
well, it's currently
Um,
noon approximately over here, right? So I have the entire day.
I just, I just, I
Oh,
just,
Jesus.
I'm just the average American that's flustered that we have come to the point where we have two incompetent leaders and people are, diehard Trump or diehard Biden fans, when most people are just going, "Hey, look, they're a turd taco and a bullshit burrito. Take your poison. Pick one." I mean, I'm sorry, but the only rational position to have is they both are shit. Which type of shit do you want, and how much of it?
I mean, the question is basically: is it less moral to vote for somebody who's an idiot, or less moral for somebody to vote for somebody who's just full on evil?
Yeah,
That's
no,
what it
I
boils
happen to
down to,
agree.
right?
I happen to agree. It is a lot of morality questions, and I think that Biden is the more moral choice. Um,
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
I mean,
understand.
no question, right?
Yeah, but
The
you
fact
have
that
people
he's
out
not
there that
found guilty for how many felonies already? Over
yeah, but there are
30?
people out there saying, "Oh, that was a witch hunt, and it never should
Yeah,
have happened."
bullshit.
And
It's just bullshit.
as I'm like, I'm sorry, but you don't have a guy that's worth billions of dollars having so many different things that he's lied about. I mean, when he was in president, how many lies were they keeping track of? How many thousands of them? I mean, this is not normal.
Yeah, it was over one per day on average, wasn't it?
It was like every single day they fact checked him and said this is not true, this is not true, this is not true. And then I was going to tell you, about people close to him, because we were talking about yes men. That 4-star general that they brought up, the one that had said something along the lines that Trump was saying about losers or whatever, he got fired. And I believe Biden on that one. I believe that the 4-star general said something. Trump fired him because of it, because he doesn't like criticism. I
Yeah,
believe
I
that.
agree. I agree. The problem is that the guy has never been told no, right, in his entire life.
Correct. 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 He gets what he wants, and he will bully people until he does.
Yeah, and that's what you can see during the trials, right? Whenever directly after his sentence, not sentencing, after he was found guilty, right? Remember how he walked outside the courtroom and immediately complained that this was a witch hunt and
100%.
poor excuse of a trial.
Yeah.
There's a fun fact actually. The words that Trump used of saying that it was a poor excuse of a trial or something were very similar, almost identical when you translate it to what Goering said after he was found guilty in Nuremberg. Almost the same
am I
sentence.
am I shocked by that?
No,
Am I?
he said something
I'm
to the
not.
effect of this was a poor effect of a trial and just a witch hunt.
Yeah,
And
and I think this is
the
where
winner, the winner sentencing the loser or something like that.
I think this is the word people get confused a little bit, though, because I don't like the word Nazi being thrown around, because as somebody who's from Jewish lineage, I take that very, very personally. You're German as well. You take it personally. We know we both agree on the horrific things that have happened in the Holocaust, and to compare him to like a Nazi, there's like, I mean, sorry, but there's just no comparison. Nazis are Nazis. They were the farce of the evil you can get. But unfortunately for Trump, he does say things that a lot of people in the Nazi party said. Why? Because he's the same narcissistic personality type. That doesn't mean he's a Nazi. It just means that he has personality types that you see the same things you would find in like Nazis. It doesn't mean that he would send people to the gas chamber.
I mean,
He's not
the
that.
main
He's
difference
not
here
that
is,
mental.
is that Trump actually doesn't have an ideology. He just doesn't give a shit about anything apart from himself, right? That's why he's such a loose cannon.
Okay, John, we see you now. Hey, welcome,
Oh,
John.
yeah.
It was on your end, wasn't it, John?
Now he's in Excel 84.
Yeah, yeah,
You need to unmute yourself, but then again, it says also for me, Steve, that you're muted.
yeah. We show you muted.
What the fuck?
Maybe I have to go. Maybe we have to. Do I have to go out and come back in? Because I had this the other day where I can hear one and not the other. Let me re-exit and let me see if I can hear.
Yeah, okay, I'll just wait. I can hear you. Oh, he just dropped.
No. Now, well, now I show.
There we go.
Fucking
There
ages.
we go. Wow, that was kind of weird, dude. All right, hey, the
Jesus.
three people are working. Yay!
I think
Twitter
the
sucks, man.
I think the team responsible for Biden's medical care is also the team responsible for Twitter Spaces.
Dude, it's so bad, especially when there's cross platforms or people in different countries. It's so bad. But anyways, Geostreber is recording this, and I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel in the morning.
Yeah, you
Yeah, I
can
see
just
that.
go right ahead.
I don't have too long, but I was going to at least talk for like a half hour or something like this, and just throw this Twitter space up there because Geostreber and I wanted to vent on this because we're both frustrated as shit at American politics. And you're
Honestly,
European.
I'm not that frustrated. I just find it funny.
Well, yeah, funny, but okay, I'm frustrated. I'm an American. It's
funny in a tragic kind of way.
Right. I mean,
yeah, it's have
humorous,
you ever seen the Joker movie?
No, I don't watch those.
No, like how everything's fucked up, but in the end, it's still kind of hilarious.
I get that party plays. Yeah.
You couldn't if you jumped in a time machine and went back 20 years and you told somebody that this is what was going to be happening, they genuinely wouldn't believe. I mean, setting aside the disbelief from time travel, if they just told you this is what the political sphere was going to look like, you would not believe them at all. You wouldn't think that it was even something close to tenable, possible.
I disagree because I know for a fact that that's not the case. In 2000, when George Bush was elected, I remember I had a conversation with my dad, and he was very interested in American politics at the time for some reason. And he said, this guy, this Republican nominee, he's terrible, but he's probably going to be the best one that the Republicans are going to have in the next 50 years.
Yeah, and then obviously
there's no fucking way that you're right,
that's
right?
Scary.
And then
that's
2008 came along, and we had Obama on one side and McCain on the other one. And I said again, okay, this guy's terrible. And he said, yeah, sure, he's terrible, but he's going to be the best candidate that the Republicans are going to have. And I said, there's no fucking way, you're right? And then in 2012, Mitt Romney came along, and the entire thing happened again. And the entire conversation happened again, right? I always said, okay, this guy's a fucking idiot. Mormon after all, right? That was it him? I think it was him. Yeah. And he said, no, there's no fucking way that this can get. Yeah, and there's no fucking way this can get worse. And then 2016, and that's the point where I finally accept, okay, I lost that bet. This is gonna keep on repeating.
Yeah, before John, real quick, let me throw this in there. Mitt Romney was a senator from Utah, but here's the thing: did you watch the Mitt Romney Barack Obama debate? It was eon levels of civility greater than what we witnessed the other night. I mean, there was respect between the two people. They weren't acting like children. You didn't have them, giving barbs about handicaps and sleeping with porn stars. And then Trump denies sleeping with Stormy Daniels, even though he just got found liable for having hush money to her. What do you do? Invite her up to his penthouse to have a discussion on geopolitical climate and how to deal with North Korea? No, I mean, Jimmy, for him to openly lie about that, I didn't sleep with a porn star. Oh, shut up. I mean, come on.
I mean, he was recorded on tape multiple times talking about, grabbing women and stuff. Yeah. So, he's a fucking liar. We all know it.
I take massive issue with that. Look, I mean, look, he's a billionaire playboy. He's of course he's going to have fucked around. I don't think anybody would think that.
So why did he deny it? Why did he just like?
Well, because of course he's going to deny it. I mean, he is now a politician regardless, and he obviously has a wife and a home life, and it is embarrassing, especially because what Stormy Daniels has been saying about his, how can I put this, his performance.
Yes,
he's on the third trophy wife. Don't remember that he's been doing this shit for decades, and everybody knows.
Of course. But what I mean is that
Mario Mushroom.
It's not anybody who is voting for this guy is voting for this guy already in the knowledge that he's a billionaire playboy that's hoard himself around as much as is humanly possible. That's you can't damage him by making that claim, and that doesn't damage him. The problem with the court case,
his fan base doesn't care.
The problem with the court case is, firstly, they never demonstrated. It was never a part of a burden. Like Stormy Daniels being allowed to speak in the court case. They didn't need her there in order to actually there was no need for her to be there in order for the prosecution to demonstrate their case, which means
they already knew that they had slept together. That was already in evidence. There was nothing.
You don't need it. You don't need it to be in evidence because hush money can be paid even if somebody is lying.
True.
And the issue with the complaint here is that he paid hush money, which came out of a political fund.
Right.
But you don't actually need.
They tracked the money.
Yeah, so the whole point of having Stormy Daniels speak in the trial was purely just to embarrass him, and that was politically motivated. I don't see how you could see that any other way, because it's not necessary. It is objectively the case; it's not necessary.
Why?
And then additionally,
why did they pay him out of? Why did they pay her out of those funds?
So what they from what I understand was that the money was paid to the lawyer from the funds. Because the lawyer was doing campaign work and other things as well, so they were just routinely paying him out of those funds, and then he used some of those funds to pay Stormy Daniels, either by instruction or not. But then after that, she had been then what Trump then did was reimburse the campaign purse, the money that had been paid to his lawyer, because it wasn't campaign services. But he's put the money back in the pot, and money is fungible. If he never repaid the money, then obviously that would be an issue. But the point here is that this court case, there's 34 indictments now, or convictions now, all of which are the same thing. Like, they indicted him 9 times, but they created each one of the checks as an indictment.
Mm-hmm.
So if they find him guilty on one, they have to find him guilty on all of them. You can't find him guilty on one.
It was a domino. Yeah, it was a domino effect. If he's guilty on one, then it kind of falls.
So it's actually only one indictment for a start. It's not 34. They intentionally broke it up into lots of parts to make it look worse than it was.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't think so. That seems to be a thing in the US in general, where, for each particular offense, even if they're bundled up, it's an additional indictment point. You see that all the time.
But they didn't have to do it that way.
Yeah, but the fact that it's common shows that there's not necessarily some sort of political motivation behind it.
I don't think it's common practice. I don't think it's common practice to do it like that. I think that there probably was some political motivation.
Here's my biggest gripe with it. I mean, the judge is obviously an appointed judge. The prosecutor is the person who, and I'm no particular fan of Trump, by the way. I think he's a crass narcissist. I don't particularly like him. I think he's definitely the best out of the 2 candidates that you've got at the moment, because I'll take the narcissist over the baked potato.
Sorry, I'll take the corpse. I'll take the corpse.
I'll take the baked potato because it could do less damage. He's not going to start a nuclear war.
Well, I mean, again, the world was more peaceful when we had Trump in power. I think because he's an unknown quantity and people don't know what he's going to do, they're less likely to push his buttons. They're less likely to try and push him.
I agree. He's a wild card. So here's the thing. It's funny you mentioned that, John, because that's the same exact reasoning that I wanted Trump over Hillary, is because Trump is a wild card and our enemies would not know what to do, but they know about him now.
Also, in what way do you think that the world was more peaceful? Which war has started since then?
So what do you mean?
So you said that the world was a more peaceful place under Trump than under Biden, didn't you?
Yeah. So I think
which conflict would you point to?
Well, the fact that, I mean, there were obviously ongoing conflicts that started prior to Trump coming into power, but obviously, I'm not going to say that the world was peaceful, but it was, relatively speaking, more peaceful.
Yeah. In what way? What changed?
Well, we didn't have any new conflicts starting for a start. We had the progression of the Abraham Accords. Things looked like they were settling down in the Middle East. Iran was nicely in a financial black hole in the corner somewhere.
Iran got much worse because Trump canceled the nuclear deal.
But how did that get worse?
How did it get worse? Because
so we're paying them loads of money, and they're secretly developing nuclear weapons.
You are not paying the money. You're not paying the money.
Still getting nuclear weapons.
That's not what happened. You were not paying the money. You were
unfreezing sanctions. Yeah.
Yes,
fine.
And as a result, they allowed the IAEA guys to come in and check that they are not enriching the uranium over the threshold that's needed for regular reactors. That's a win. Canceling that was insane.
Yeah. And as somebody who was in the nuclear power field at one time, I think that us not building new nuclear reactors, or France or Germany or UK or anybody, is the worst mistake we can make. I mean, Geostreber knows this. Pound for pound, the amount of energy density in uranium-235 is far superior than any petrol product. Far superior.
Yes,
the energy density.
Yeah, of course. And I'm not going to pretend to be a nuclear.
I should say gram for gram. Sorry, guys, gram for gram. I'm sorry. A kilogram. I'm sorry. You're all metric people.
But
Geostreber is a PhD in chemistry. He hates the American Imperial SI system. I'm
Obviously,
sure.
I do, but I'm fine with using it for for live streams. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, just for the sake of translation, we Brits are a bit of an oddball because we decimalized in 1972, but we still do just because of sort of cultural artifacts. We like if you go to a market and you buy fruit, it's sold by the pound. It's not sold by the kilo or grams.
Your speed limit is still in miles per hour.
Hey, look,
Speed is
I'm
still in
all.
miles per hour. Yeah, we're a total chimera. So
I am
we're sort
all
of
for the metric system in science. In the sciences, I had to use a metric system, right? And I'm all for that. I think that's the absolute way to go. But in society, I'm perfectly fine with standard.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Just switch once, and then you never have to think about it ever again.
I know, but this hasn't been phased out yet. Should the empirical system get phased out and go strictly metric? Yes, I think so.
Should have been done in the 70s.
I agree, but it hasn't been, and that's one of the reasons why America's been dumbing down. That they don't focus on these types of things, right? They don't even teach either system in general in college any longer. It seems. I mean, I see people that can't even do a simple, times 10. I literally have had cashiers that I've asked, what is 10% of a dollar off? If you have a dollar and it's 10% off, what's the price? They have no idea.
God.
I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking that they can't even do 10%, which would be easy in the metric system, obviously. So
just going back to the Iran thing, and again, I'm not but to a degree, I am just regurgitating in some part what I've been seeing or heard. I'm not an expert on the Middle East by any stretch of the imagination. So obviously, my understanding is that money was unfrozen and sanctions were lifted.
Yes,
and
but
this was.
In exchange for that, basically Iran allowed all the nuclear regulators in to make sure that their plants were built in such a way that this high enrichment of U-235 that you need for atom bombs was not reached, right? When you enrich uranium, depending on how much U-235 you go for, the fission reaction happens a bit differently, right? What you want in a reactor is that you don't get prompt criticality, if I understand it. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, you don't want prompt criticality. And to reach that, you need a very high amount of enrichment. And for that, the devices to actually have the enrichment need to look different.
Yeah.
And Iran agreed to have it unfrozen in exchange for the regulators going in and checking that their hardware is physically incapable of producing uranium that's high enough enriched to make bombs. That was the deal.
Yeah, because what happens is when you have about, I think it's like 89 to 90% enrichment, you start having the ability to get critical on what's called prompt neutrons alone, which are neutrons that are from the actual fission. And so when you're doing a civil energy with just non-fizzle, basically. Well, I shouldn't say non-fizzle, but more difficult fizzle material.
I guess my rationale, despite the physics set aside, because I'm not really talking about this from the physics. I completely concede your point in that the equipment required, based on inspectors going in, okay, you can't make a nuclear bomb with this physics. In the same way,
they did. No, they found weapon grade. John, they did find weapon grade, or at least close to it.
So this is my point, right? There's two ways of tackling this problem. We seem to be able to go, right, okay, we'll take the brakes off of your economy and we'll stop trying to strangle your economy because we have a severe ideological difference and you are a hostile nation. It's you're sort of like there's sort of like, because the Ayatollah and the religious institutions that are sat atop it, it's sort of been parasitized, hasn't it? It's not, there's a significant chunk of the people that don't align, but it's a totalitarian regime. But my point is that there's two ways of approaching this. You take the brakes off them financially so that you're not economically crippling them, and then you send in inspectors and you ensure yourself as best as you can that they're not making the nuclear weapons. The other option is that you cripple them financially so that they can't make those nuclear weapons because they can't afford to. But if you take the brakes off their economy and they're making the weapons in secret where the inspectors haven't been, which they did. So my point is that if you take the brakes off the economy and you send in the inspectors and they secretly make it anyway, you've just given them a load of money and the ability to make nuclear weapons. If you cripple their economy, it makes it very difficult for them to make the nuclear weapons.
The problem is that you hit the civilian population much more if you try to cripple them, right? That's how you end up with increased criminality and increased terrorism, because people think that you're basically screwing them over.
But I can tell you right now, we knew for a fact, so one of the processes they use is gaseous diffusion, and they try to make uranium hexafluoride and enrich that through centrifuges. So they had all these very, very expensive centrifuges purifying the uranium-235 because in natural state it's only like it's less than a percent. It's something like
It's 0.5% something
0.7%.
depending where you get it from.
Yeah, it's really low as far as the fissile material, which is the 235 that you find in 238 ore.
Remember, Steve, if I'm wrong on this, but you can also run reactors on natural uranium, right? Or with natural abundance of U-235. I think the
No, it still
RBMKs
has to
ran
be
on that.
enriched. No, you still have to enrich it somewhat. You still have to enrich it in a little bit for even from the fuel that we used in the reactor we had was still enriched, but it wasn't weapons grade. And we were finding things up to almost 90% during the Desert Storm. I remember this that Iran was having when they were having the people go over to test to see if they had any weapon grade uranium. They were finding very high concentrations that you would not use in a civilian reactor, because in a civilian reactor you still have to make it, you still have to take out as much 238 and get that 235, which is much more fissionable. And you don't want it to go on prompt criticality on a nuclear reactor. You want it to be delayed, what's called delayed neutron precursors, and that makes that reactor inherently more stable. They were doing way more above that, John. They were clearly making nuclear weapons.
No, absolutely they were. And the notion that inspectors in a country the size of Iran, with a country that's ideologically driven in the way that Iran is, are going to be able to ensure themselves to a level of satisfaction that I think people would be comfortable with, at the same time as you're giving them, you're unlocking an economy that has an abundance of natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really dangerous way to go. And as we've seen with them funding and supplying resources, training weapons to the likes of Hamas and Hezbollah, I completely concede the argument that putting economic sanctions on a nation essentially can turn the population that was either indifferent or on your side against you, because they are now suffering. Obviously,
but it's not working, is it? It's not enough to turn them against them, is it?
John,
obviously that's really shit. But
do you remember who Trump was on the phone call with for the Javelin missiles? Was that Zelensky? I think it was Zelensky.
Yeah, it was Zelensky. Yes,
I can't remember.
It was Zelensky. Okay, because I thought that was.
Missiles in exchange for dirt on the Bidens, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was for dirt on the Bidens. I think that looked into as criminal. Even though I support, Ukraine, I don't think we should be trading weapons for dirt on people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to put one of these people. I mean, obviously, you've got to look at it in the context of the political milieu in general. I mean, you've got the whole email thing with Hillary. Then you've got the whole Hunter political favors for his father in Ukraine, and that being fairly. Then the return in with sort of campaign funds being used to generate the Steele dossier, which they tried to weaponize against Trump. I mean, they're all just as bad as one fuck another. They're all narcissists, nepotists, and criminals. The lot of them. The issue is that it's very partisan the way that it's being the legal system's being deployed. I mean, and the fact that Biden has been covered for so comprehensively in terms of his mental decline. Mm-hmm. I would say that in and of itself is criminal. The American public have the right to know whether they are being led by a cabbage or not.
I agree with you, and I think it'll be. Mark
the phrase was just perfect.
I think it will be a scandal. I think when it comes out that
Trump is a known Trump is a known quantity. All of his skeletons are now out in the open.
I don't think he is.
Yeah.
I don't think he is.
I think he's got dirt out there that we have no idea. I mean, look, we cannot know all about all the things he has done. Every election cycle, new stuff comes out about that.
No, but what I mean is, if it turned out that Trump had slept actually with two supermodels, would it change our opinion of him? No, but if it turned out tomorrow that Biden had slept with a supermodel while he was married, would that change our opinion of him?
Well,
yes, of course.
That's
what I mean. I'm not talking about
Wait, stop. I'm not saying that any type of affair that comes out in the press that Trump might have had would change anything. But the guy was a what's it called, like a housing mogul in New York, right? And he was running casinos. I wouldn't be surprised if he had some sort of mob connectivity or something like that.
I guarantee you he will have. You can't build anything in New York,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes, and all of that, none of that has been publicized so far, as I'm aware, right? So I would not be surprised if that came out today. That might actually change a lot.
But John makes a
You,
good
you
point.
can't build a garden wall in New York without some shady Italian standing behind you wanting his cut. It's
There's an extortion ring. There's payoffs. There's land
Yeah.
grabs. But here's
unions.
the
There's all
interesting
sorts.
thing,
Yeah, it's
John.
fucking
You made
nightmare.
a good point. When it comes to Trump, none of these things phase his constituents, right? If they find out that Trump slept with somebody, some supermodel, none of them want to care. But Biden, they will. That goes to what Geostreber and I were talking about earlier of who is it more moral to vote for. Yes, you know what you get with Trump, but the fact that it doesn't even phase somebody should be reasons to not vote for him. That has become so mundane and so just normative with Trump is that look some other scandal with Trump.
And that may I completely get where you're coming from, and that may or may not be. But what I'm getting at here is it's the concept of informed consent, right? So Trump's the people that are voting for Trump and the people that support Trump know Trump better, and he is more his true self with his supporters and with his base than Biden is with his. And I would suggest that the point with Biden is that he is so absent now. He is so gone now. His dementia, his Alzheimer's, whatever it is, just sheer old age, is so far gone now that he doesn't have. It's not him making the decisions. It's not him pulling the strings. But that's who they voted for, and they're not being honest about it. So
I agree with that. You're absolutely right about that. But again, Trump is the kind of person who's going to be authoritative over the people that are just yes men to him. And do we really want that? Biden is going to have other people running the country for him because he probably does now. I'm certainly thinking that his wife is constantly involved in everything he does. She's his handler. That we were hope that we at least have people in charge that under the Biden administration are going to at least know what a little bit more what they're doing, even though this past 4 years has not been that great. But in
part that's obviously always the case with every political institution because one person
Trump won't let anybody run the country for
delegate.
him. Trump, no. Trump doesn't delegate. Trump has people running the country for him because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He has no other choice. He's incompetent. But now I think going in 4 more years, he's going to try to take the reins, and I think he's actually going to try to run the country himself and tell his people that were running it for him that he did the last 4 years to F off and fire off people. That's what what he's like known for.
Yeah, more or less. He's gonna surround himself like with absolute insane people. Somebody like, I don't know, Marjorie Greene. That's a scary thought.
She's dumber than a box of rocks, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the. It's different in the US to the UK. You do have people who, I mean, you've always had a higher degree of sort of sectarian vote, what I would call sectarian voting in the States. I'm not equating that with sectarian violence, which is where most people associate the word sectarian with. But what I mean is that you know, if you've got a hardcore religious fundamentalist, they might not vote Republican, but they're never going to fucking vote Democrat.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like you mentioned, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do you see how she acts in Congress? I mean, she acts in Congress is exactly what it was representative of what the debate was. Two just old schoolyard bullies picking at each other rather than having a statesman like a debate like it used to be.
So I mean,
Taylor Greene is indicative of the dumbing down of America, and we're voting them into office.
Yeah, I mean, the personal foibles of each. I mean, you don't get to. I mean, I had this discussion a while ago with a person who shall not be named, and it was to do with the Brexit referendum. And the argument was that, well, we should at least have the referendum again because the people who voted to leave were lied to. And they referenced like this. They had this battle bus which had a number emblazoned on the side of it, which was, if we leave the EU, then we can give this many millions of NHS to the week, to NHS of the NHS to the week, a week to the NHS. Fucking hell, get my words out. And what it turned out that they'd done is they'd taken the amount of money that we give to the EU on a weekly basis or an annual basis, and they'd added it to the money that we got back from the EU in terms of sort of like funds for farmers and all this sort of gubbins, added them together and divided it by the number of weeks in the year. It was dishonest. But the principle of what they were saying is because we get less money back from the EU than we gave in. We essentially give the EU a shitload of money, and then we get a small portion of it back as coupons that dictates where we can spend it. Whereas we'd have been financially better off just not giving the money to the EU, having more money and have it be completely fungible and spend it as we see fit, rather than being dictated to by the EU.
And then the second after the election or the referendum was over, Nigel Farage immediately backpedaled on that one.
Yeah, but how many people? I don't know much about the UK politics as far as like the Brexit. I never did understand it. I tried to understand it. I will never understand it. I'm not even going to try. But one thing I do know about it is that people have been said that nobody understood it either. They didn't even know what the hell they were voting for.
No, so but what I'm saying, what I was about to go on to is there was that lie or that misrepresentation of the truth, which had
was it a lie though that they were ill informed?
Well, no, I'm going to make the case that both sides were both informed and ill-informed, and the degree that they were is kind of irrelevant because people still have the right to vote, regardless of whether they're informed or not. So we also have things like crazy ass stories like that the UK was going to be overrun by strains of super gonorrhea because we weren't getting the medication that we needed from the EU, despite the fact that a significant portion of the medication that we needed to treat gonorrhea was actually fabricated in the UK and exported to the EU. So
Did you just say super gonorrhea?
it's a legit headline that we were going to end up with like highly evolved strains of gonorrhea going around the UK that were immune to, and this was somehow going to be.
Oh, you're breaking up there a bit, actually.
Sorry, they said that we were going to end up with strains of super gonorrhea in the UK that was somehow going to be linked, going to be made worse by going through Brexit.
Well, I remember that, and they were talking about how that was going to be brought about by travel in and out of the UK.
Yeah, but
that was back in 2020 something or 21.
The rationale that they were making was that it was going to be to do with access to the medication.
But I thought it was going to be for foreign travel.
No, but we're a net exporter of the medication. Strains of gonorrhea. We're a net exporter of the medication, so we'd actually have plenty. It was a complete nonsense story. But my point is that you start going to the lines of like which group of people is informed or group of people is misinformed, then the attitude very swiftly follows that of, well, if we've determined that this group of people is more misinformed than this group of people, then maybe we should make that group of people again until we get the answer we want, or we should not let them vote at all because then they're not informed enough. And I'm like, no, you have a right to vote and you have a right to look at the information around you and take on board the information as you see fit. And like with the likes of like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's been elected by her constituents. And the only thing I would probably do is I would make it mandatory that you have to have been a resident of the constituency that you live in for a minimum number of years before you can run for office, because there is a habit now of moving around the favorite political people into safe constituencies in particular parties.
What does that say? What does that say for the people that voted her into office? I mean, seriously though, like, what does it say? What does it say about them?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can read into that, but I mean, you can, now they might be voting based on a totally different paradigm to how you and I would vote. I don't particularly give a shit what a person's religion is, for example.
No, that's not even a factor. I don't care what their religions are. It makes no difference to me one way or another. Now, I would prefer a non-believer in office, but that's just me as a non-believer. But whatever.
Some people would prefer, would never. There are, you and I have spoken to, Steve, these religious fundamentalists or people who are incredibly religious who don't be a moral person if you don't believe in God.
Yeah, and they're scary. And if they got into office, a higher office, it would scare the hell. It's the fact that we have Congress people that are like that scares the hell out of me.
Not only do we have Congress people, at this point, I think even some of your judges on the Supreme Court are like that, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah, a few of them. And Trump appointed a couple of them.
Yeah, 3 of them, right?
If I remember correctly. Well, he appointed 4, 3, but 3 are probably 3 are religious, but yeah, I think just 4 candidates that he appointed, if I'm not mistaken. But like I said, I'd rather have a non-believer. I mean, we had a vice president under Trump that believed the Earth was 7,000 years old. I mean, where do you go from there? I'm sorry, but that's not something that should be running the country.
You had a president that saw the same thing after all, right? If you look at George Bush Jr., it was very clear that the guy was a creationist.
I literally have no recollection of that, to be honest with you.
I mean, he infamously said that both sides should be taught, quote unquote, when he was asked about the Dover trial.
I think I do remember that when on the Kissmiller versus Dover. I think he weighed in on that. But here it is, 2024. Anybody who still thinks that we should have a creationist in office, I'm sorry, but you're just flat out wrong.
But
or
Yeah,
a
but the
flat
fact that
earther.
but the fact that half of the people in your country, almost at least half of the people in your country, still believe that is just insane.
I know. Dude, I'm telling you, the dumbing down of America. I rest
so
my case.
this is the thing there. I view, so you've got a religious extreme going in one direction, or a religious and a political stream going in one direction, and then you have the ideological and political extreme going in the other direction. Well, in that, like, I don't want a right wing creationist in charge of the country and having control over all the laws that are passed by our parliament. In the same way as I don't want some left wing nutbag that thinks there are 72 genders, sex isn't a real thing, and that we should
Same
allow
thing.
point
Yeah,
of term abortion.
I agree. You're breaking up bad, by the way, John. Gio, can you hear him?
More or less, yeah.
It's breaking up bad for me. Well, that's okay. I'm probably going to call it a night here soon, anyways. But yeah, but I got most of what John was saying, and he's absolutely right that the fact that we have people in office that are promoting queer theory and gender ideology, I think that's right now is one of the bigger leading things of causing the dumbing down of America, without question. Without question, it is a main cause of America being dumbed down.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree.
It sucks. It really sucks because there are.
Can you guys hear me better now?
Yeah,
good. So just, I mean, it is being dumbed down and it's happening everywhere. I mean, I put a in the UK, we're about to be blessed, he says sarcastically, with probably one of the most left-wing governments that our country has ever seen.
You're getting a new election soon, don't you?
Yeah.
Is that the Labour Party? Wait, is that for you? Is that the Labour Party?
That's the Labour Party, yeah.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer is a legit Trotskyist. He's a Trotskyite. He's got the British Secret Service have got a file on him where he was essentially invited to Russia as after he graduated, and he came back to the UK and he was advocating essentially for hardcore communism. And it was only a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, where in an interview he said that those beliefs haven't really changed for him. He still holds those as part of his core principles.
That's pretty scary. So what about reform? What about okay? So are you a conservative or are you a UK reform?
So I'll probably be voting reform on the basis that the Conservative Party needs to be destroyed. There's very little difference between them and the current.
That seems to be what I hear too. Again, your guys' politics are a little bit different, but from my understanding, reform is basically a subset of the Conservative Party wanting to fix things because the Conservative Party and the Reform Labour Party both have shit to them.
The reform politics, the reform policies are very much sort of the Conservatives of probably not quite Thatcherite, probably slightly post Thatcher. They're a bit softer than Thatcher was. But so, for example, they're not. People say they're anti-migration and they're racist. They're not anti-migration. The policy is net zero. So we have about 1.2 million people coming into the country a year, and we have about 600,000 people leaving a year, which means currently we have a population growth of about 600,000 people a year. What they're saying is that if 600,000 people leave, 600,000 people come in. That's not net migration. That's not asking for no migration. That's asking for a stable population growth so that our services, our resources, our infrastructure isn't overburdened by a 1% population increase year on year. That's fucking insane. We can't cope with that. And there's other policies as well. Things like, for example, we issued last year 100,000 visas for people to come and work in the UK specifically for the NHS. Of those 100,000 visas, those people who were given those visas were allowed to bring dependents with them. So we estimate that there's probably in the region of 180 to 200,000 people that have come into the country.
So every one granted a visa, 2 or 3 more came in.
Yeah, basically, because they're allowed to bring dependents. So if a mother comes to work in the NHS as a nurse and she's got a 12-year-old, that's a dependent, isn't it?
Isn't that what they're calling cultural replacism?
Well, I mean, I'm not even making that argument. What I'm making the argument of is
but a lot of it is, especially. I mean, again, I don't pay attention a lot what's going on in your country, but holy crap, the streets are not the same as it once was.
No, in certain areas. I mean, where I live, it's pretty static, but we live in sort of like the edge of a countryside. We're sort of this rural / sort of semi-urban sort of area. You know, the house I bought, it's a 3-bedroom semi-detached house, and we bought it for just under £500,000, so about $650,000. So to be quite frank, the people that are coming into the country new are costed out of moving into this area, so it's not really affecting us yet. It will do eventually, but it's not affecting us now. It's more the cheaper properties in the inner cities where it's essentially forcing people, the existing culture that is there, forcing them out, because the homes are being purchased where it's affordable for the people coming into the country to afford them. But what I was going to say about the visas was that, so we've had 100,000 visas, somewhere between 180 and 200,000 people that have come into the country on the auspices or on the understanding that these 100,000 visas are going to end up with 100,000 additional medical staff working in the NHS. Of those 100,000 visas issued, we had 11,000 of them beginning to work in the NHS. So the NHS now has an additional 11,000 staff. Great, thumbs up. But what came along with that was 200,000 people, all of whom are using the NHS but have never fucking paid taxes into the system. So how does that benefit the NHS?
No, it's not sustainable either.
It's not sustainable at all. They wax lyrical about
we have the same
GDP.
problem.
They wax
we would have the
lyrical
same
about
problem with
they wax lyrical
we have the
about
same problem here,
GDP
though.
going up, which it does if you import people into the country, because they all work, they all do begin to pay taxes in some form or another. So obviously GP goes up, but the productivity per person, because for the most part it's low skilled, goes down. And because the productivity per person goes down, the GDP per person goes down, which means there are less taxes being paid per person to provide for the services that we have. None of it is sustainable. And Reform's
that's how it
position
is in America too.
Yeah,
We have the same problem. It's not sustainable because a lot of the people coming in are not paying their taxes. But again, neither are the super rich. They have loophole after loophole they can use.
Like most of our population in the UK, like most of the working class population, the vast majority of the population in general, somewhere in the region of 70%, put the huge amount of migration into the United Kingdom as their number one issue that they're concerned about. And every single Tory manifesto, and even a lot of the Labour and the Lib Dem manifestos that have been put forward in all of the elections since like 2003, 2004, have stipulated that they were all going to try and get migration to come down, and it has done nothing but rocket up. And most of the migration is legal migration, and most of the people have an approved visa before they get on the plane where they're coming from. So the fact that the migration has gone up is 100% in control of the UK government. They said they were going to get it down, and they didn't. How difficult is it?
But that's part of your Labour Party. Your Labour Party wants that.
The Labour Party does, but the Conservatives have been in power for the last 14 years. How difficult is it to not stamp a visa compared to how difficult it is to stamp the visa? You've been given your mandate,
or at least get a higher. But here's the thing: like in our thing, we have people coming in; they're not even on visas. We have people that are undocumented. We have no idea who's coming in the country.
We had there was one day it was like
not as much as we are. Dude, our borders are porous as can be.
Yeah, no, I mean per capita, our borders aren't quite as porous as yours, but per capita, because our island is tiny and we're quite a densely populated nation. So there was one day last week where we had 812 migrants come across the channel in boats, and every single one of them was escorted by the French Coast Guard across our 12-mile line, and then picked up by our Coast Guard or the RNLI. And we pay the French £500 million a year to drag the boats back to France, but they don't. They escort them over the channel.
It's a messed up system. I mean, I'm it's comforting to know that America's not the only country that's gone to absolute crap. But I mean, as I'm saying, maybe it's just not only the dumbing down of America, but the dumbing down of society in general.
Well, we're about to the Labour Party, who's just about to get in. The reason I mentioned them is because they have they want to reduce the voting age from 18 to 16. So
in general, or just for local elections?
No, they want to reduce the voting age from 18 to 16 nationally. They also want to give all EU citizens.
Yeah, but again, just for which type of election?
He's talking about for all elections.
For all elections. We don't distinguish.
For all elections, okay.
Yeah, so
that's silly.
If you have the right to vote, you have the right to vote. Obviously, you have to be a constituent of the area in which you live. You can't vote elsewhere.
What is it? What is a 16-year going to? Not many 16-years are going to know enough about political stuff.
So this is what I'm about to highlight, right? So you can be 16 years old and vote. It's also the case that they're going to want to allow all EU residents that are working in the UK, not residents of, not naturalized, not citizens of the UK, but EU residents of the UK, to give them the right to vote in our national and local elections as well.
That just sounds like they're just trying to rig the election in their favor.
Well, of course they are. But here's the thing, right? If you're 16 years old, you can't smoke, you can't get a tattoo, you can't drink, you can't get married, you can't serve in the armed forces, or at least in combat wars.
But you can vote on.
But you can work, right? You can work and pay taxes.
You can work and pay taxes. Of course, you can work and pay taxes. But here's the thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So why shouldn't that person be given the right to then actually do a part?
The education system, in our education system, it is mandatory that you are required to. You're not allowed to leave full-time education until you're 18 years old. So they haven't even been through the minimum required education that our government requires by law. But they can vote. If you want to make the argument that you don't pay taxes until you're eligible to vote, fine. I'd rather that than lower the fucking voting age.
But here's the thing. Just because you pay taxes doesn't mean you're automatically carte blanche and have a voting right. The kids are not working full time. Kids have labor laws, and so they only are able to work a certain amount of hours and get some spending money. Okay, so they're not working 40, 50-hour work weeks like the rest of the people. So they're
50 hours. What the fuck? Here the maximum is 37.
Oh no, America's 32 minimum. They just voted on that 32, but it was 40. And then most people, when I was working one place, I had 12-hour, 16-hour days.
Sometimes. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm too old for that. But yeah, that's full time. Would anybody be in 50? If you ran a store, you were there 50 hours plus 60 hours.
Yeah, so full time work in the UK is 37.5 hours, but that doesn't account for your breaks. So usually a full-time working week is 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm a little bit of a bubble since I work in academia. Yeah. So for me, it's basically I do my work whenever the work needs to be done, which means that some days it's 14 hours, sometimes it's 2.
Yeah. I mean, but you reach that level where you can do that. You get paid for a very specific specialty based on your education.
Yes, thank God.
Well, really? Well, let me ask you this: just if you would have picked a different subject to go on into, would you have other than chemistry?
Can you repeat that one? You were kind of cutting out.
If you had a choice early on to pick a different discipline rather than chemistry, would you have picked something differently?
I don't think I would have. No.
Really? Okay. Chemistry's hard. I don't think I get.
I know it's hard. That's kind of the fun thing about it. What I do is basically detective work. There was a day a couple of weeks ago where I was doing nothing all day apart from staring at the spectrum.
Until they gave you something, hey, we need you to do.
I was like staring at the data set and trying to figure it out. Sometimes that happens.
Oh, I literally thought you were. I don't know why, but I have this mental picture of you doing a spectrography, and watching the little, thing glow, and then doing a spectrogram or whatever, and that's how I.
No, you're just looking at an NMR spectrum data set, and I couldn't figure it out, and just stared at the thing for 6 hours straight until it clicked.
You had like a spectrum analysis. Did you find the pattern you were looking for?
Yeah, I figured it out in the end. Obviously. It's detective work. It's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I would be bored out of my mind on that. I think.
Now you get used to it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, who said we all had to be interested in the same thing? Hey.
Yeah, chemistry wouldn't be my thing. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I have a minor interest in chemistry. I do my minimal bare basics like anybody else, but to go that far into the nuances of the subject, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. I think for me, because I did architecture, I might have considered engineering maybe.
Yeah, engineering maybe, but not chemistry.
Yeah. But so, then, what is your guys' prediction regarding on how this continues in the US then? Going back to the main topic, I guess.
It's going to be a downward trend. It's going to be by November.
I'm talking about this particular election. What comes after, that's a wild card at this point, right?
Yeah, before November, which is the election, I think Biden's going to be asked to step down.
I don't think he'll be asked to step down. I think what will happen is they will what they should have done.
I think he's already been asked. I think you're wrong. I think he's probably already been asked. I think they have brought it to his attention already.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. But what I mean is how it will be presented is that they'll lie and say, he had like a mini stroke and he's no longer fit for office, and we've got to, they'll pretend that they're just realizing now that he's not fit for office. They weren't.
Which was not going to fly because people have been pointing this out for several months, if not years, the decline in his national security.
I mean, Jesus, I swear to Christ, in the debate that we just watched, was there not a point where he said that he was inspired to run for office of president because after his son died in Iraq?
Yeah.
He said, didn't he say in Vietnam? Whatever.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
But yes,
his son died of brain
you talk
cancer
about the
on
guy who
US
died from a
soil-
brain
on US
tumor,
soil.
right? Yeah.
He can't even remember when, what, and why his son died. It's just it's legit terrifying.
It's yeah. Alzheimer's is a pain in the ass.
Well, and here's the thing, though. Many of us have seen people with Alzheimer's or diminishing capacity. I know that I certainly did with my father. I know somebody that I'm very close to where she is taking care of somebody who has Alzheimer's. We know the signs. I can literally see my dad's cognitive functions decline over 6 to 8 months. Biden's has been over several years. His effect from that debate was not normal. It was a look of incredulity, of not being fully aware what he was at, not being fully aware of the questions being posed to him, certainly not answering in a coherent way that you'd expect a statesman as president to be able to do. And I'm sorry, but he just doesn't have that ability anymore.
Wasn't there that one bit where I watched it and he went off into this it was about a minute long. It was a complete and total incoherent ramble. And then you had Biden on the right and Trump on the left, and you could just see the expression on Trump's face. He was just looking sideways, and he was like wide-eyed. He was like, "Really?" You know,
Trump. Yeah, but Trump is smart about it. He played it very well. He didn't like make it too big a thing, but he definitely made it look like, what the fuck is he talking about? And then he said, I don't even understand what he said. Yeah. And
Trump was intelligent enough. Trump was intelligent enough to actually, capitalize on that when Biden said something about beating Medicare.
And he goes, "Yeah, you're right.
You beat it to death. Yeah.
What does that even mean when we beat Medicare? Now the person moderating the debate cut him off, and it was a time element. But I would have loved to hear what he was going with that.
I mean, I must say though that Trump also had his moments during the debate, as in where he said absolute nonsense. When he was asked about climate change, did you see his answer on that?
Was he talking about the Paris Accords and when we got out of it?
Yeah, no, he talked about we have the cleanest. I want to have the cleanest air and the cleanest water, and we just had H2O, and it's gonna be great, and we're gonna use all the different types of energy, and they're all gonna be clean energies. Bullshit. That was not the question that was asked. What are you planning to do about climate change? And then there's no answer.
Well, right? I think he was trying to say, and I'm not correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not speaking for him, but that we'll get off dependency of fossil fuels and oils and go more to cleaner energy.
No, that's exactly not what he said in the past. It's the exact opposite.
Well, no, I agree with you, but I'm saying during the debate, that's what I think he wanted his constituents to believe. But from his historical
not
records,
even that.
That's
not even that. I think what he tried to say was that he was planning to basically not talk about climate change, but about environmental pollution, right? Because those are obviously two different topics.
No, I think they're interrelated.
They're interrelated, but they're still, not the same thing. Yeah, and because he knows that he can't answer on climate change, because it's very clear to him that, people are starting to recognize that this is getting a really fucking scary problem. He didn't answer that one, but instead he answered the other question, which was about
Trump does not think climate change is a thing. He doesn't accept climate change. I guarantee.
Climate change is absolutely a thing. It's just obviously how much of an impact we're having on it, and how much we can mitigate the damage now, and how much economic damage we're supposed to accept because of that. And
he's a businessman. He doesn't care about that. He cares about the present. He doesn't care about the future. Think about this. He's an authoritarian dictator type person with a narcissistic complex, John. Do you think he really gives a shit about his progeny, the future of America, or the future of the
universe? No, but I don't think what Trump does in the next 5 years will have a huge impact in either direction, because this is a problem. I mean, just as a for instance, it's like if we did fracking and you burned natural gas instead of coal and oil, that would have a positive impact, and we'd still keep we'd still have our electricity. Yes, we can use renewables to supplement. I think we should definitely be driving down the technology into the salt thorium and things like the microreactors and things like that. Stuff that in principle can't melt down.
I don't think that
because
micro reactors are a good idea financially.
No, here's the problem with micro reactors. They wanted to put these little reactors in people's, in their neighborhoods, right? And in matter of fact, literally, like each house would have their own reactor one time.
No, I mean what the modern concept basically says that you build mass-produced factory reactors at the about 200 to 450 megawatt scale. The problem is just whenever there's a financial analysis done on that, they turn out to be much more expensive than just building shit tons of renewables.
Oh
and,
well, the
and
overcost is
buffers.
ridiculous. The
Yeah.
cost of the overruns are ridiculous. But I'm talking about really micro reactors where I'm not even joking. They wanted one reactor for like neighborhoods or even individual houses at one time, right?
Yeah,
Which
but-
is theoretically possible. But
But again, that's not the concept we're talking about in this particular.
then what was he talking about?
You were talking
So-
about the medium-sized ones, right? The factory-produced reactors made by I don't know Areva or
So
somebody.
I don't really care about the size of the reactors. What I'm getting at
250
is
is pretty good. My reactor that I was
we've got a twofold problem, right? The renewables are not cost effective, and
Oh, they are.
nuclear reactors. They're
The
heavily
renewables
subsidized.
are the cheapest electricity source now in many places of the world. There was just one report this morning that wind energy is now cheaper in China than coal is.
But here's the thing: the problem with those renewables is they're also the least energy dense.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
But also,
I mean-
peaks and troughs. It's peaks and troughs in production. You've got to take
Sure,
into
it helps,
account
but
the batteries to store the power.
yeah, you're never going to get.
Which is currently in exponential growth. You know that, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I get that. But then you've got things. Then you've got things like the bloody solar panels. And fine, they've got a really long life expectancy, 20 to 25 years.
But they use
But
Stop. That's usually the life expectancy when it comes to the energy efficiency costs.
The efficiency.
You can run them longer. I mean, the ones, for example, on the Hubble telescope, right? They've been running for what, 35 years at this point?
They just get diminished efficiencies.
Which is usually not that important, actually. It's more a question of, when they started producing them, they were really fucking expensive. Though the early models don't really make a lot of sense anymore to run cost effectively. That's no longer a problem now. The cost for solar arrays is now about $97 to $150 per kilowatt.
Right. But here's the thing, Gio.
It's almost nothing.
Housing is going that way, and in certain places, like in California, solar is the way to go for an individual house. No question about it.
Same in Germany. My family home is now running independent of the grid.
Yeah,
basically.
no question about it. My sister had solar in her house.
Yeah,
she actually was getting money back. I mean, she actually was powering the grid. It was and this can happen at certain times when low energy use for the grid. Solar panel can use to supplement that, even from the residential thing. So solar power is feasible, especially with newer technology, which will definitely take a huge amount off the power grids.
So I'm about to do some, Geo. It sounds like I'm about to do something similar to what you've done for your home.
Well, I mean, it's not mine; it's my parents' family house. Because I recently moved countries a couple of years ago. But I built a solar array, so.
So we're about to put a 7 kilowatt array, solar array on the roof. We're going to be having somewhere in the region of 18 to 20 kilowatts worth of lithium-ion battery storage.
You mean kilowatt hours?
Yeah, sorry, kilowatts. Yeah,
kilowatt hours.
Yes, yeah.
It's important not to mix those two things up.
Yeah. Kilowatt hours worth of storage. So that should, based on our current consumption, give us about 4 days worth of electrical storage in the battery.
That would be 5 kilowatt hours a day. That sounds about right.
Yeah, there or thereabouts. Obviously, but we can only cycle but the deep cycle batteries only go down to about 8. You can cycle them down so that they have a 20% capacity remaining without battery damage.
When you say deep cycle, are you running on lead batteries?
No. There's I forget the name of the company. It begins with R. It's like Revino or Ravino or something.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the manufacturers that much, actually.
They claim so these are 24 volt lithium ion batteries. They are 220 amp hour batteries. They're very large cell batteries.
So 220 amp hours multiplied by 24 volts. So that's about half a kilowatt hour per unit.
Yeah. So the
it sounds higher than that. That sounds. Is it what? Is it?
No, it should be higher. It's higher than that.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's 5 kilowatt hours per unit.
Yeah. It is much higher than that. Yeah. So you threw me there. You said that so confidently. I was like, yeah.
Sorry, that sounds low to me.
Yeah, sorry, my
For
bad.
gold at 200.
Where's my
That's fine.
calculator when I need it?
And all you gotta do is times them together. So I mean,
Yeah, to 220 amp hours times 200. What was it?
24 volts.
24 volts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 5.3 kilowatt hours a pop.
there
Yeah.
you go,
So
5 kilowatt.
yeah.
That
So
sounds about better.
yeah. Because but
So
anyway,
Hey,
four or
look,
five of
we're
those
all,
cells.
we all remember a little bit about our basic
Yeah.
electrical stuff. Yeah,
Um,
interesting.
but the point is, I think and the thing is, like, we've got a grid tie system here where you can put your surplus back into the grid. So
Yeah,
my
same in
intent, so,
Germany.
yeah, so this battery system, it will allow us to use 80% of the capacity of the battery, and then it will maintain it as 20%. So I'm going to be grid tied, but to have so that when there's no power to keep the battery above that 20%, that it will charge the battery from the grid rather than charging the battery from the panels. Now we've
Yeah.
got something in the UK called Economy 7, where our electricity overnight, where consumption is really low, but the power stations are still fired up, you get cheap electricity. So what I'll do is I'll have it maintain the batteries overnight when there's no sun shining,
And then
when the
sell it in the
electricity's
daytime.
cheap. Yeah. And then
Mhm.
that's essentially the plan. So it will become
You
as
get
close
paid
to
for that,
grid.
right? You get paid for that, right?
What you get paid for putting electricity
Power
back
back into
into the
the
grid.
grid.
But
Yeah.
I can get this set up because I work in the trades. I got scaffolding, electricians. I can put the panels on the roof myself. I've got a rudimentary understanding of the system to do at least the first fix with the cabling, the wiring, and then I can get my electrician in to do the second fix and put it together, the inverter, etc. So I can do this all myself for about £6,500 to £7,000. Whereas if I get a company in that insists on doing the whole thing themselves
Time for
in order
that.
to be certified to get the grid tie, it'll cost me nearly £20,000.
Yeah. Yeah. Ridiculous. Yeah.
And I get so I'll be
I
dead by the time the
definitely.
system has paid back for itself with what little money you get per
Oh,
kilowatt
I think you're 100
or
percent right
kilowatt.
on that.
So
Yes.
So
for us, we did the calculation. We built the system about 5 years ago, and about half of the cost is already back in.
That's good.
Yeah, that's very good. So in our
Yeah.
case, there's no battery, and we have a I think 15.5 kilowatt array.
Can you invite
huge
And
array.
Joanna? Can you invite Joanna? Although it's open. So Joanna, come
oh,
on
there
up,
we go.
Joanna. Love to hear from you. Although you're getting the tail end of this conversation. Oh wait. Oh my God, are you okay? I know you're
Good
sick, but
enough.
damn.
Yeah, you know, I
Yeah,
have the feeling it might have been COVID,
my
but I didn't bother getting a test. I just stayed home. So
my medicine
uh,
cabinet is starting to be like my old man's was, and I'm like, shit. You know, I'm like, damn, really? I mean, and they just upped my dosage too for one of the medications. I was at 5 milligrams, now they're on 10. So they had to reorder new pills because they had to go the stronger pills. Even though it's kind of good because what they're for is working, but it's not. There's other things that are not working in conjunction with it, so I have to get a stronger medication. So, but it's all in all, it's beneficial. But yeah, I'm just like damn, it sucks to get old, man. Don't do it, Geostreber.
Yeah,
Stay 30.
don't stay. Yeah, what you were talking about with those batteries, the reason that this particular battery company that I'm looking at, the battery, we can use 80% of the energy capacity of the battery before it damages the battery, but also the battery itself comes with a 10-year warranty, and they claim that down to an 80% efficiency, the battery has, I think it was an 8,000 deep cycle life.
yeah, that
So
sounds about right. That's pretty much the norm. Yeah,
How
eight to
many?
ten
so
thousand cycles.
so that means
Yeah,
if I so
yeah, that's all right.
basically, for what I will save on my electricity, I will, by the time these batteries get to an 80% efficiency, I'll be able to replace the batteries 4 times over.
By the time you replace the
So
bat,
by the time the batteries get down to their 80% efficiency, making the assumption that I cycle the battery once a day,
yes,
which I won't
that
because
would
the
be
battery
30 years
capacity is higher.
approximately, right? If I remember, if
Yeah.
I see this correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm making a really worst case scenario because if I cycle the battery once a day, which I shouldn't cycle the battery once a day because I've got 3 days worth of consumption. If I line them in parallel, then each battery will drop by about a third, and that's assuming that I'm generating no power, right? So worst case scenario, if I say that every battery is cycled down completely once a day, and I've got a 10-year warranty or an 80% efficiency on the battery, before the battery is out of its warranty, I can afford to replace this battery 4 times over based on what I save on my electricity bills.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
I
sounds about
think.
right. Do you remember the nickel metal hydride batteries, John? Way before the nickel cadmium, and how much memory they had if you didn't deep cycle them.
Even
And
I still remember those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were
That's
they were a nightmare.
that's
You had to fully discharge the battery before you
correct.
recharged it. Otherwise, you
that
Or
killed
get
said.
it.
memory.
Considering the fact that I kind of work in hydrogen storage applications, regarding the entire battery thing, here's my bet regarding this. I don't think lithium polymer batteries are gonna be the best choice in the future going forward for stationary batteries.
Mhm.
There's a relatively new technology called sodium ion batteries. They're about half the energy density, right? So they're, they need more volume and more weight for
But
the
no,
same
but
energy
no memory.
storage capacity. But they're much cheaper, right? Because you're not dependent on lithium.
Mhm.
And apparently they're also much more solid when it comes to the amount of cycles that they can run.
Wow, that's a huge thing though.
Yeah.
I would take that trade off.
So
Sodium
for
is much cheaper, obviously, than cadmium.
Well, they're
And
also
what? Lithium.
they're also
well, lithium batteries sorry,
Yeah.
right, because it went nickel metal hydride, nickel cadmium, and then there's lithium ion. But if they start going to a sodium ion, obviously that's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper, more cost effective, and even if it has less memory and less power density, that's a good trade off. Or more
Yeah.
memory should be
So
better with memory, but
that
just
is
less
my
power
guess
density.
on where this
Yeah.
is going. Not only for um, standing applications. There's already a few city cars produced in China that use sodium batteries.
It would be safer too, probably. But what about the hydrogen buildup for because this is your
Mm,
area of expertise? I mean, if you're dealing with sodium batteries,
no,
sodium
they're
hydride batteries,
still
you're still going to have
exploding.
the problem with hydrogen buildup. Clearly,
I
Hydrogen
think the
buildup is
biggest
not the problem. No, what the issue is that basically the lithium atoms themselves are pyrophoric.
okay.
And,
Well,
and that issue you also have with the sodium batteries. They're also exploding. Not as bad as the lithium ones, but you still have to
so
make
what
sure
happens when
that
you get
well,
a deep?
my
What?
understanding with the lithium batteries is that when they catch fire, the reaction is actually it's an ionizing reaction, so you can't put the damn things out because if you put water on them, it just strips
Yeah, you
the
need
hydrogen out of the oxygen.
stuff.
yeah,
So
no, there's no chance. It's basically a metal fire. Forget about
Yeah,
trying to
class
get that
D
out.
fire they
Yeah.
call one in America. It's a class D fire, which is a special hazard. Like sodium fire, you don't obviously put out with water. That'd be
Yeah.
stupid.
every time one of these cars catches fire in the UK, they put a cordon around on it, they let it burn out, which takes days, and then
Yes.
the reaction is so fierce that when they finally drag the car away,
There's
they've
holes
got
in
to
the ground.
re-asphalt the road because it's burnt a
Well,
hole in the ground.
Dude, I've seen this. I've literally seen this twice. Okay, in the parking lot from work, there has been 2 car fires, 2 of them within a span of a year. Both car fires, just a normal car left scorch marks and impingement on the asphalt for where the
Yeah.
metal was just liquefied. So if that's what it's going to do to a regular car, can you imagine what a lithium ion battery is going to do, or with
Well-
the sodium ion? But what happens, Geostreber, when these batteries get a defect? What happens when they get
They burn basically the exact same way as lithium ion batteries. It's not as bad, but it's comparable.
But there's a greater chance of burning when there's defects in these batteries.
Yeah,
This is
definitely.
what's the problem. This is the problem with Tesla.
To be honest with you, I think the biggest problem with going all electric for all of these things is because the energy density in the batteries is it is going to be a headache, but it's the infrastructure. So, for example, in the UK, they turn on extra turbines or they spin up extra turbines in power stations when people, like every silly son of a bitch that watches a soap opera called Coronation Street, because at the break in Coronation Street, they all get up and turn their fucking kettle on. So they have to spin up extra turbines in the power stations to account for the additional demand. So now what the fuck are they going to do when 35 million motorists in the UK get home at the end of a workday and plug in a 75 kilowatt hour battery that needs charging? The infrastructure just isn't there. And it's even other stuff.
In America, it's even worse though. We're going to by 2030 we have to get rid of all new petroleum cars. So all cars will have to be electrically sold after I think 2035, I think it is, or something like that. So
it's the same in Denmark. 2035 is the end for newly sold ICEs.
And right now, I'm telling you for a fact, because I live here in California, we do not have the capacity to charge that many cars on the road, and long distance hauling will be absolutely impossible. And then when people realize that they have to replace batteries if it gets a minor dent in it, that's going to cost them $10,000 to $20,000 on a car they just bought.
Well, I mean that really depends, right? Modern EVs have modular battery systems. The one example that I always point out is VW, because I like VWs, and their models.
The German likes VWs. Go figure.
Yeah. They basically have 50 or so subunits of the battery, each about the size of a small suitcase. And if one of them, shows signs of damage that you can read out in the software, you can take it out, put a new one in, done.
So it's more modular.
It's much more modular, yeah.
Yeah,
So what they've
that's a
been
good
talking
idea.
about-
Yeah,
I'm
that's a good
surprised
idea.
it wasn't like that in the first place, because the batteries
Yeah.
in these cars are basically structural. They're fused into the fucking thing.
Right.
In a lot of the
It would make more sense to
Yeah,
have.
with the VWs, it's not. They're not really structural themselves. They are put into a frame, and the frame itself is structural, right? But the actual
Yeah.
battery packs themselves are not. They're pouch cells, like in a laptop.
But let me
They're
ask
not
you,
the cylindrical
why
one.
wouldn't that, but let me ask you though, Joe, why wouldn't anyone design that from the beginning? Like, okay, so the original like 9-volt batteries, right? They were individual cells.
9-volt?
Yeah, 9-volt battery. Remember?
No, so usually,
listen.
so for example, what Tesla did, right, which was one of the very early players in this regard, they just use off-the-shelf, basically AA batteries that just contain a different chemical content,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Which are lithium cells.
But
But those are not 9 volts; those are 3.7 volts per cell.
Right, but
Doesn't matter.
My point is
The
that
reason-
the original 9-volt batteries had individual cells in there, and then other batteries were just
Yeah.
AAA
Yeah.
batteries.
Well, the lithium
Yeah,
cells
the
I
reason-
used to.
the reason why this is done-
61380s or something.
Well, hang
The
on.
reason
So
why this is done is upscaling, right? The infrastructure for making those cells was already in place. Now
Okay,
that
but why don't they
the
use
amount of
cars?
EVs are increasing, you can use pouch cells instead, because the factories for making the pouch cells are now scaling up, so they're getting
Well,
cheaper.
that was my point. Why don't they? Okay, so now that we have the technology to make smaller batteries and run them in tandem with each other,
They're actually not smaller. They're per cell. They're bigger. They're about the size of an A4 sheet, maybe an A5 sheet.
okay, but again, why would you, instead of having one big battery, why don't they have smaller batteries that are modular and then run them together?
Yeah, that's basically what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand how that evolution has happened, and it would make sense. Whoever,
Because if you run them in parallel, you get the cranking power you need, right? I mean, you can
Yeah.
obviously just run it just run these individual cells that are 12 volts. By the way, they're 24 in your country.
And also, well,
Which electrical system?
are you talking? Wait, stop. Are you talking about batteries?
Cars. Ours
Yes.
are 12 volt systems.
Yeah,
Yours
so
is
the lead batteries are either 12 volt systems. There are some that use 48 volts.
Okay.
And
So
buses,
you-
I think, are 24.
All right, so you get your batteries, you get them to whatever voltage that you're designed to have, 12, 14, or 12 to 24.
Yeah, but
and then you just
that's the lead acid batteries, right? For the starter engine and stuff. The
Yeah,
ones for
yeah. But why
EVs,
can't
they're
you do that?
much.
Why
because
can't you do that the same principle with the batteries for the car itself as
Well, for the
energy
EVs, you need a much
Yeah,
higher
EVs.
voltage, right? You need 400 to 800 volts.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because
EV cars
otherwise,
are gonna be much harder.
for the same power output, you wouldn't need much higher
Yeah.
cables or much bigger
Yeah.
cables.
Okay, I didn't think about that. You're right,
the-
because the EV cars are going to be a much higher voltage system.
For example, for charging, the cables that you need to fast charge a car, and by fast charge, I mean, fill the entire battery up within an hour or so.
Yeah,
That's already twice as big as a garden hose.
yeah.
It's
No,
about
I
as
just looked,
thick as the
Yeah,
cable
so
for a
I
vacuum.
I just looked it up
cleaner.
for the Tesla. It's 350 for the Model 3, 375 for the Model S, and 400 for the Model Y. That makes more sense. I don't know why I was thinking 12 volts because I'm so
Yeah.
used
So-
to regular cars.
So in Europe, we have two standards. We have 400 volts and we have 800.
Yeah, all of our EV charging cables in the UK, I know, because I use them. I build timber frame garden buildings, home offices, and we actually run the EV cables to get power from the domestic
That's a
property.
lot of volts.
Well, we use
Sorry.
EV cables to run the domestic power from the domestic property to the cabin, because the EV cable, it's armored. It's got a 6, 10, or 16 mil core, dependent on the voltage that you're going to run of your attenuation over distance. And the EV cables also have Cat6 Ethernet cable in them as well.
Yeah, for the communications of the car.
For the communications of the car,
computer
yeah.
can basically tell
Yeah.
the charging station how much amperage and voltage it needs.
That
just
scares
obviously
me though. That dude, you think about that. 400 volts at high amperage.
Remember
I mean,
also, this is DC, right? If you get zapped by
I
this,
don't-
this will end you.
Yeah, DC is going to go right through your heart and just kill you. I mean,
That's not the problem. The problem is that it doesn't
burn
flicker
you?
out 50 times a second, right?
Yeah,
There's
it's a cycle.
nothing to get rid of that spark.
Well, and it
Yeah,
also
the-
doesn't push you away from it. It clamps you down onto it if you've got the conductive
Oh,
component. as well.
DC at higher voltage is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, DC at high voltage, it maintains the contact, because if you've grabbed the thing, not realizing that it's got a charge, it contracts your muscles around it rather than throwing you away from it. Yeah, you're toast with DC, fucking instantly.
I mean, my next car is gonna be an EV, though. I'm fairly certain, because all the issues that I have, it's always with the drivetrain, and all of that just disappears when you switch to an EV.
Well, this is the thing that I never understood as well with the hybrid vehicles that we toyed with and still are toying with. Why the ever living fuck do we have two drivetrains? Why do we have the electrical drivetrain for the electric motor and then have the mechanical drivetrain with a battery?
You
Why do we
don't.
not?
There are systems where they're combined. You know that, right?
Yeah, so they use like diesel or petrol electric, right? Freight trains.
No,
There are plenty of
no. So for example, the way your standard plug-in hybrid works is that the electric motor is basically directly connected to the main gearbox, right? So that you can switch off.
There's no transmission.
There is a transmission in hybrids.
Okay.
In
So
EVs, there's not really a transmission. There's one gear basically that you cannot couple out of. There's no reverse. If you need to reverse, then the motor itself just runs backwards.
So
But the
what
rest are all
what I'm getting at is what I don't understand is why even bother with that?
Yeah, I don't understand it either. Hybrids make sense in a very niche application, which is if you commute a shit ton back and forth to work, 20, 30 kilometers
Yeah.
each day, but then every now and then you need it for like a vacation or something, right? That's the only
Yeah,
thing
so
where you need a
The
hybrid.
problem is, how would you use a hybrid for any kind of like towing or anything like that?
There's no difference.
How would it have the torque?
It still has the same amount of torque. The EVs
Even though it has no
actually
gearing,
insane.
even though it has
some
no
of
gearing
some of
ratio?
Yeah.
well the full electric vehicles check out a huge amount of torque. If you want
Yeah,
to.
you can imagine per amount of horsepower you get about twice the amount of torque in an EV than you get in a gasoline car.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
So for example, another VW example, right? I drive a Golf 6 at the moment. It's a 1.4 TSI, so it's a pretty mediocre middle market engine thing. Has 122 horsepower, makes 200 Newton meters. The success of my machine was available in electric, and that is available with a 115 horsepower engine. So electric motor, right? So about the same power output, but it has almost 400 Newton meters of torque, which means that the torque is almost twice as high. And that's rather typical.
I think the
And
problem
also,
with the electric,
it's a torque curve, right? Because there's no gearbox, there's no need for the torque curve to be. It's super flat. You press the pedal and it just propels you.
It just goes.
And instantly, there's no delay because the engine doesn't need to spool up.
Right.
So-
you don't have to match your engine to your gear train, to your
Yeah, all of that disappeared. I paid €1,500 2 or 3 years ago for a new set of clutches. So I have a dual clutch transmission, right, which is a type of automatic, but it still has clutches. All of that shit is just gone when you buy an EV.
In America, I guarantee it. There are very few people that are Gen Zs that even knows how to drive a clutch. I like my clutches.
I'm just saying that it's a dual clutch system. It's still an automatic.
Yeah,
it's just internally it's basically two manuals, right? One for the even gears and one for the odd gears.
Well, I don't think we're allowing people in the UK to take their driving tests in automatic vehicles. The only difference is that they're not allowed to drive a manual if they do their test in an automatic. But
yeah, same here. That's a European standard thing, actually.
I wouldn't even allow people to take their test in automatics. If you can't get your brain together to operate the clutch, the steering wheel and brakes at the same time, you shouldn't be on the fucking road.
I disagree. Very simple reason. I had a relative, my grandma, who only made her driving license in the 50s, and she had severe walking trouble, as in one of the knees was completely fucked up. So she bought an automatic and she did the automatic driving test.
So we have medical exemptions for people to drive now. So that's just a medical exemption.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with it.
Let me clarify what I meant though. I think that if you learn to drive on a standard, you should be able to do. You don't need to prove yourself on an automatic. But if you learned on an automatic, you should not be able to drive a standard.
Yeah, agreed, and that's how it's done here. That's exactly how it's done here.
That's why I think that when you go for your driving exam, you should learn on a standard, and I think you're better off learning on a standard. But unfortunately, you have to find a vehicle that's a standard too, and they don't make them any longer. They're going to be phased out. Although I think that what you're talking about with the EVs, they're going to have something that similar.
I mean, EVs and hybrids are almost never standards. They never are. EVs don't need to because they don't have a gearbox. Hybrids never are because good luck trying to control one.
But you were saying that they're going to put some hybrids. They were going to have some kind of clutch mechanism for something.
Yes, there is a certain type of automatic gearbox that's called a dual clutch. You operate it like an automatic, but internally it works more like a manual, where you actually have the decoupling mechanisms.
It's so you do have to disengage the clutch.
The system does it automatically.
No, you've got two clutches in the drivetrain that hand off from gear to gear.
Yeah, more or less. Yes. I have one of those. They're fucking awesome. Just pointing that one out.
It's all done automatically, but there's two
Yes.
disengagement clutch mechanisms.
Yes,
Yeah.
it basically works like two gearboxes simultaneously, where you decouple from one, you couple into the next simultaneously.
You're making me go back into my nuke theory here, okay? My gearbox.
Yeah, because most of the automatics in the UK they're what are called continuous mesh gears, so they don't have a clutch. Whereas the but the thing is with the clutched automatics, they do drive lovely. I'm not going to lie. You do get that nice power jolt from gear to gear that you just don't get with like an automatic. And when you clutch down with like the engine braking and things, it just feels much nicer to drive. But obviously, as is evident, you've got the wear and tear of two clutches.
Yeah, every 100,000 kilometers or so, you need a new set. And unfortunately, those are usually economy cars, which means they're front-wheel drive, which means that the clutch is unfortunately sitting right between the motor and the gearbox, which means that you need to take the entire drivetrain apart. Which means
think about the cars that had this, and then I got to get going. And
it's not only the engine; it's also the front wheel that also needs to go right, because otherwise, in a transversely mounted motor setup, you can't just pull the engine out that way. So it's a pain in the ass if you want to have it repaired.
Gio, can you send me this recording?
Yeah, I don't know how to do this yet, but obviously, yeah.
Yeah, it's just gonna ask you, do you want to save this or something? And then when you exit, you said yes, and then I can either. I try to send it to me if you can, and I'll figure it out. But I was going to say, oh shoot, what was I going to say on the car thing? Oh shoot, I don't remember. We went from American politics to cars, and we remembering my reduction gear theory, because in the Navy we have these big reduction gears for the ship, because you got to take the power from the turbine and send it through this big old long shaft to the propeller, and that requires huge reductions.
I mean, that's for turbine setups, right? Usually the big cargo transporting ships, those are usually direct drive, where the motor is attached directly to the propeller without any reduction.
Yeah, we don't.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go in a second. I know you're about to wrap up, Steve, but just before I do go, as always with these discussions that I love having with you, but I do think that it is objectively the case that Joe Biden in his debate managed to stay on topic better than we three have in this discussion.
Yeah, but that's not hard.
Yeah, this is what we do. You know what? I like going off topic. I am all for that. It doesn't bother me unless it's like something specific that I am doing a show on.
Whenever we have a hangout like this, it always derails more like an Intercity Express in 1998.
Right? Yeah, John, do you know how far back Geostreber and I go? Holy crap. I mean
2016, 2017?
No, 2015 probably.
Oh, wow.
I don't think so. I think I started in 2016.
Could be. Okay, but even still, even if it's 2016. Excuse me, it's a long time.
Yeah, especially on the YouTube timescale.
Yeah.
Since we started talking, I got my master's in chemistry and now my PhD. And now I'm a fucking postdoc.
Yeah, there you go. Congrats.
I soon switch to the industry.
We still got to do some kind of chemistry stuff. Hang out. I don't know what.
Yeah, at some point, guaranteed. By the way, you did read my thesis now, didn't you? I think I sent it to you.
I don't. You did some of your thesis. I know. You think I'm going to understand any of that? I mean,
no.
Jesus, man. Come on.
It's just my way to feel superior.
Yeah, well, of course, and you should. But here's the thing. I wrote a very second level, 200 level philosophy paper that people cannot even understand. I can't imagine them trying to read your paper. But I get that when you write something and people aren't going to understand it, but then when they tell you that it's wrong. Can you imagine me telling Geostreber that his paper was wrong for his PhD thesis when I don't even understand what the thesis was about?
I mean, in fairness, I did find a few small mistakes in there, but I guess that's normal. I found them for everybody.
No. Well, I've checked
it's pretty standard. As long as it's not a foundational mistake in it.
No.
Yeah, I don't think any PhD thesis is expected to be absolutely perfect. It's can you defend it, and is there any kind of, as he said, critical mistakes? Like if in my paper, if they would have found a critical mistake in the logic where I actually had a fundamental flaw in the logic,
then you're absolutely fucked.
Yeah, then I would be saying, look, my paper, it's wrong, but nobody's been able to find that. And
the problem is, Steve, that I guess this kind of crazy shit that you and I deal with when we're talking about philosophy, logic, epistemology, when people say that you're wrong about the semantic collapse of the atheist, theist, and agnostic. The people that we deal with in the most part is probably the equivalent of somebody saying to Geo that his paper's wrong, and then Geo says, "Okay, can you explain to me what a chemical isomer is?" And they go, "A chemical what?"
Yeah.
Now,
They-
what you need to do, I had hangouts on YouTube with people who don't think that water is H2O.
well,
You
that's what I was
you
going to say.
cannot
They probably,
you cannot imagine the amount of frustration I sometimes feel.
what they're trying to convince you, like for
But
example,
what do they think?
H2O2. If they think
What
that's
do they think
water,
water is?
I
Yeah,
have
what chemical-
I've yet to figure out what exactly they mean because they stumble about their own words so much that they have no idea what they're talking
No,
about.
you
obviously.
really had you literally had people tell you that H2O is not water.
Yes,
Like
I
literally.
I have a few hangouts on my channel where I have idiots like that make that claim. That
Flat Earth.
series of hangouts is called the oxymorons for obvious reasons.
How does that even happen? Like I can't process that. Like, what would be the argument on that? I don't understand what the argument would even be. Are they saying that water isn't comprised of 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen? Is that
Yes,
what you're
that's exactly what they're thinking. They're doubting all of modern chemistry. And then
So
when I
what is
point
it?
out, all the mistakes, here's the rotational spectrum of water, here's how we know that is, here's a bunch of organic chemistry reactions that show that it's that, here's the crystal structure of ice
Dude, they're
crystals.
trolling you. There's nobody. There's nobody.
No,
Even flat
no,
earthers
there's
don't do that.
no. They're just like
Come
flat
on.
earthers, just that they picked a different subject.
I mean, I can't. The reason why I am incredulous to this, although you're honest and I know that what you're saying is true, I believe that wholeheartedly. I can't phantom it, but I do understand that people have done similar things to me, right? They've said things to me that I know they're absolutely wrong about, and it's like,
No, these people are genuine because they've been doing this since before I started.
that's weird, dude.
I mean,
that's weird.
You sort of. I understand the incredulity, Steve, but I guess we're probably all three of us are at the stage now where the incredulity is kind of performative because we do know these people exist.
Right.
I mean, I was listening. I'm
not really that incredulous. I do.
Yeah, I was listening. I was listening to Ozian's debate with this flat earther, and he said the moon is far away, and Ozian said, "Well, that's a subjective claim, not an objective claim." And the guy, the flat earther, said, "No, that's an objective claim."
No, it's not.
Well, I know, but this is what I mean. Like he was saying that it's far away. Ozian said, "Yeah, I know, it's 238,000 miles away, but like far is subjective."
What's objective? If you say it's this many miles away, that's objective. But claiming that's close or far is purely subjective, but based upon your perspective.
Because the distances that you're talking about, if you said that if you're living in a block of flats and you're living in a 1,000-acre farm, to say that your nearest neighbour is far away,
right?
Subjectively, that is subjective because the actual distance they're away is different.
Somebody was literally arguing. Then see, here's the problem. They don't know objective from subjective. I went the same problem with moral theory. They don't understand subjective from objective. They don't get it.
But what I mean is that's so unbelievably basic, yet these people exist.
You would think it's basic.
Did you guys see the 8 or so hour long video of Veritas about flat earthers?
Oh God, no.
Obviously you're gonna hate me for suggesting it, but you
should
watch
watch it now, man. I can't do
hilarious.
it. Dude, I can't. I'm not like Reds. Reds has the stamina of a saint. I don't have that empowerment or the ability to deal with you haven't done much in flat Earth recently, but you did.
Yeah, that's because I've been, actually being
getting
busy being a proper, productive member of society.
I just couldn't do that though. I don't have it in me to do what you and Reds were able to listen to and I don't know. I just blows my mind there are people that stupid. But again, dumbing down America.
I mean, you dealt with G-Man a couple of times. That's already
but G-Man is a dude. But he's a character. Come on, let's be realistic. G-Man is a character that he plays. I mean, sure,
it's so. I really hope so.
No, I know it is. I've talked to him about this. He admits it fully to me. That
okay, I didn't know.
Yeah,
but I still can't.
It's a character based on him. It's still him, but he amplifies it. He turns it on. He calls it going full G-Man. He knows he's doing this. He'll ask me, do you want me to put on that, rev that up kind of stuff?
He's obtuse. He misunderstands on purpose. So like with the King Crocoduck debate in the after show I watched, where he comes in and he says to KC, so let me just get this straight, KC. You're saying that because we've not observed Pluto orbit the planet, orbit the sun, that means that evolution is true. And it's because
misunderstanding.
Yeah, but there's no way that he didn't understand what Casey was saying. Casey was saying that we are justified in concluding that the orbit of Pluto takes X number of years relative to us because we can see, even though we've never seen it complete one orbit, but we can still claim that as knowledge.
Correct.
And obviously he related that back to some concept or principle in evolution, i.e., having like quote unquote missing links. But there's no way G-Man didn't understand the context of what was being said.
No, he deliberately tries to obfuscate. That's his shtick. And I think that's the shtick of almost every flat earther as well.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I do got to go. Gio, I'll look for this when you send me. John, always a pleasure. And let's do it again because when I'm up late at night,
before you leave, John,
I need your foreigners to keep me preoccupied.
yeah, as foreigners from the civilized world and Great
Talking
Britain.
about American politics, yeah.
So I was about to ask just before we do go, Gio. Obviously, you said you moved. Are you still living in Germany, or are you elsewhere in Europe?
No, I live north of Copenhagen. I'm in Denmark.
Ah, you're in Denmark. Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got an offer here for a PhD position a couple of years ago that was just too good to refuse.
Yeah.
Originally, I'm from the suburbs of Nuremberg.
All right. I spent a lot of time in Heidelberg. We used to go there every summer and every New Year. So
Nice. I've never been in Heidelberg.
oh, great. Is it city, town? I don't know. I think it's a city.
It should be over 100,000. So yeah, city.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely get it's great city. It's brilliant. The old town's fantastic. So
Yeah, name one city in Germany where the old town isn't fantastic.
this
Apart
is
from the
very
ones
true.
that you guys managed to bomb in World War II.
Yeah, the RAF did do a little bit of remodeling. I apologize for that. So,
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, most cities, just fucked up the renovation processes. Nuremberg did it right, where the entire town, or the entire city center, which was 95% flattened, they rebuilt everything according to, old photographs and stuff. So they actually did it right.
yeah.
Hey, can I touch on something before we leave? Because just to get this out there on record about the debate. Because I just saw something like Secular Outpost post, who's I love Secular Outpost philosopher, and I agree with him wholeheartedly because people have been saying that the Tapper and Bash, the people that moderated the debate, weren't fact checking, and my thing is they weren't supposed to fact check. They were not there to fact check. That's not the kind of moderation that CNN was doing. They were there to give the questions and act as journalists, not fact checkers. If we would have,
journalists are supposed to be fact checkers, right?
No,
to a
I get
degree,
that, but there's roles that different journalists need to take, and their role for the debate was not to fact check. Their role was to monitor time, deliver the questions, keep them on point. Fact checkers would have done that later on. So I don't think the mods did a bad job at all.
No, and I
tend to agree.
There's no softball questions for Biden. There were some pretty tough questions in there.
I think they asked appropriate questions, and I mean, sure, theoretically, I would have liked them to have had Trump answer more directly, but they can't force somebody to answer directly. What they can show is Trump's doing the same thing that he's always done: obfuscate, never directly answer a question. You can't force somebody to directly answer on those kind of situations.
And also, just quickly, with regards to the rules of how they'd structured that debate, obviously, from what I understand, it was the Biden camp that had submitted like the mics on and off, the timings and all of that. They'd submitted that to Trump and said, these are the rules we want you to adhere to.
Hey, Trump is smart for agreeing to that. Trump was really smart.
Because that helped. I mean, Biden was supposed to be giving 2-minute answers to questions, and he was often left with like 80, 90 seconds because he was giving such short answers.
Don't you think that Trump planned on that? That they said, you know what, let's do this. Let him try to ramble for minutes on end, and we don't want you interrupting him because Trump is famous for that. Let him just kind of hang himself, so to speak.
Well, that's exactly what I mean. Like, in the fact that they turned Trump's mic off so he can't interrupt or anything like that as well.
That was a lesson learned from the first debate last time around. The first one was a complete clusterfuck.
What I mean is that they'd have been better off letting Trump interrupt, because if they let Trump interrupt, then it would have been less obvious that Biden is basically an empty shell.
I don't think Trump actually wanted to interrupt this time around. He was much calmer than usually.
Right. That's my point. Trump was prepped for this, and his group did not want him interrupting for this very reason. I think that again, Trump did it. And I hate to say it because I'm not a Trump supporter, but Trump's campaign is being ran much better than Biden's right now. They're promoting him much better.
I would agree. I would think his strategy for this debate, Trump's strategy, that is, or the team's strategy in this particular instance, was the old idiom of don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Yeah, that's exactly what was going on there.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Well, I listen to that. So
when is the next debate? Do you guys know?
I do. I don't know.
I don't think there will be another one, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, I think there's another one planned at least.
Yeah, I think he'll back out. I think he'll have a sudden health issue between now and then, and he'll have to back out of it.
We'll see.
In terms of my predictions for this election, I think he'll end up being too ill, or unfortunately, he will have a stroke or a heart attack and actually die between now and the election, because based on how he was looking, he's so he looked like he was
I
dying on
hate to
stage.
say it because I don't wish the man ill will at all.
No, I
Obviously.
don't. That
But here's
wasn't
the
a
thing,
wish. It was just an
he,
observation. Yeah.
but I'm telling you from my own personal observation, and it's subjective. But he had the same effect that my dad would have sometimes.
Yeah.
And that was like 6 months before my dad passed away.
And again, I'm no constitutional scholar, and I'm certainly not in touch with the inner workings of the Democratic Party. But from what I understand, their internal structure, now that certain votes have taken place, make it very difficult, and almost impossible for them to replace him.
Right.
And I think if he does die, or if he is incapacitated and no longer able to perform, I think that does automatically mean that Kamala Harris steps in. If Kamala Harris steps in, I mean, her opinion polls are in the negatives.
Here's the thing. It's not a step up. Okay. It's just not. I mean, she's not
even a step
she's not
sideways.
competent to run America either.
Yeah.
She sounds like a buffoon. She sounds like a babbling idiot. I never know what the hell she's saying 99% of the time. Well, she's more incoherent than Biden. And she's not suffering from dementia.
Who in the debates for the when they were running for the Democrat leadership last time, who was the Hawaiian senator that just ripped her a new one in the debate?
For Kamala Harris? Oh, Tulsi Gabbard?
Tulsi Gabbard just shredded her in debate.
Oh, yeah. Tulsi Gabbard is sharp.
Yeah.
Wasn't she a CEO of something one time? What was her background? Do you remember?
I'm not sure. I know she was she's former armed forces.
She was. I do know if she was. I definitely remember she was a member in the armed services. She was Army or ex-Army. I don't know if she was reserve or. I think she was just reserve.
I think she was a reservist, but she was called up and did do active service overseas. But she was
a leader though. She was done leadership.
If you put Tulsi Gabbard at the head of the Democratic Party and ripped out,
they would have a chance.
If you put Tulsi Gabbard as head of the Conservative Party, ripped out some of the old guard like the Nancy Pelosi's and all those sort of nutters, got rid of some of, not all of the members of the squad, and just put them in a back room somewhere, they might actually stand a chance. But they won't do it because ideologically she's not aligned. She's now running as independent. She's not Democrat anymore. So, because all of the reasonable ones, they cast them all out.
Yeah, well, the Democrats want they want extremists.
Yeah.
All right, I got to go, guys. Thanks for this, and I will put this on my YouTube channel as soon as I get it from Streo. Okay.
Sure. How do I send it to you?
Just go to your Twitter thing, and then I think you just hit download or something.
I'll try. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks. Later.
See you. Bye.
Thank you, Gio. Always good to talk to you, man. We'll do more of these, okay?
Sure. When I have the time. See you.
Yeah. Thanks, bud.